Hey everyone, Olivia here. And you know what? Today I have a story to tell you, something that honestly made me laugh so much this morning. It all started with my alarm, or rather, the lack of it. My alarm didn't ring today, and I woke up super late. Like, super late. I usually wake up with the birds chirping, but today, it was practically lunchtime when I finally opened my eyes. The sunlight streaming through my window was so bright, it felt like the sun was personally trying to wake me up. It was one of those moments where you're so disoriented you don't even know what day it is. For a second, I panicked. I had so much planned, but then, I just started giggling. It felt like one of those movie moments, you know? It was so unexpected and ridiculous, I couldn't help but find it funny. You will not believe what happened next after I finally scrambled out of bed. So, let's begin our exciting journey of English improvement together. And remember, I release new videos daily focusing on English speaking and listening skills to help you improve and enjoy your learning journey. Okay, so, grab a cup of something warm, tea, coffee, hot chocolate, whatever floats your boat, and settle in, because this is a story. A proper story. About books. My books. So many books. You know how it is, right? You accumulate them. Slowly at first, a trickle of paperbacks and hardcovers, each one a treasured friend. Then it becomes a stream, a river, a veritable tsunami of literary love. My apartment, well, it had become less of a living space and more of a book sanctuary. Every surface, every nook and cranny, overflowing with stories. Stacks on the nightstand threatening avalanche at any moment. Towers precariously balanced on windowsills, filtering the sunlight through their pages. It was cozy, yes, but also, undeniably, chaotic. I loved them, truly. Each one held a memory. The worn copy of Little Women, its spine cracked and pages dog-eared, a gift from my grandmother. The pristine Lord of the Rings trilogy, a testament to that summer I spent utterly absorbed in Middle-earth. The slightly too academic philosophy texts from college, reminding me of late nights fueled by caffeine and existential angst. You know, the usual suspects. But, and this is a big but, I was moving. Downsizing, actually, from my beloved book-filled haven to a significantly smaller space, and let's be honest, lugging hundreds, maybe thousands, of books across town, up 3 flights of stairs, was just not going to happen. My back still twinges just thinking about it. So, the decision was made. It was time to donate. The thought felt physically painful. Like severing a limb. These weren't just books, they were pieces of me. Each one a marker on the map of my life, a testament to who I was, who I am. How could I just give them away? But the reality of the move loomed large, and sentimentality, bless her cotton socks, had to take a backseat to practicality. So, I started the arduous process of sorting. Oh, the sorting. It was an emotional roller coaster, let me tell you. Every book I picked up triggered a memory. This one, from a holiday in Greece, sand still nestled between the pages. That one, a gift from an old friend, their inscription a pang of sweet nostalgia. Each book a whisper of a past life, a forgotten feeling. I laughed, I cried, I reminisced. I even found a half-eaten chocolate bar pressed between the pages of Wuthering Heights. Don't judge. The first pile, the keepers, grew slowly. The essentials, the untouchables, the ones that held the most powerful memories, the ones I couldn't imagine parting with. It was a surprisingly small pile. The second pile, the donates, well, that one grew exponentially. It was a bittersweet mountain of literary goodness. Books I'd loved, books I'd meant to read, books I'd probably never read. Cookbooks with recipes I'd never tried, travel guides to places I'd never been, self-help books that hadn't quite helped. And then there was the third pile. The maybe pile. Oh, the maybe pile. The purgatory of indecision. The books I wasn't quite ready to part with, but also wasn't quite sure I needed to keep. This pile shifted and changed like the tides, books migrating back and forth between keep and donate as I wrestled with my attachment. You know what I mean? That internal tug of war between sentiment and sanity? The whole process took days. Days filled with dust motes dancing in sunbeams, the rustling of pages, and the quiet sigh of memories escaping into the air. It felt like I was saying goodbye to old friends. Finally, the day arrived. Donation day. I'd chosen a local library, a place where I knew my books would be loved and appreciated. I packed them carefully into boxes, my heart heavy with a strange mix of sadness and relief. The drive to the library was a blur. I remember the radio playing some upbeat pop song, completely at odds with the melancholic farewell playing out in my head. I parked the car, took a deep breath, and started unloading the boxes. My arms ached, my back protested, but I persevered. And then, something unexpected happened. As I carried the last box through the library doors, I saw a little girl, maybe 6 or 7 years old, browsing the shelves with her mother. Her eyes, wide with wonder, landed on the box I was carrying. She pointed at it, her face lighting up. "Mommy, look, books." The librarian, a kind-faced woman with a warm smile, greeted me. "These are wonderful donations," she said, her voice filled with genuine appreciation. "They'll find good homes, I promise." And in that moment, something shifted inside me. The sadness lifted, replaced by a quiet sense of joy. These books, my books, weren't just being discarded. They were being given a new life. They were going to bring joy to others, spark new imaginations, inspire new adventures. Watching that little girl's excitement, I realized that the stories held within those pages weren't mine alone anymore. They were shared stories, waiting to be discovered, to be loved, to be lived again. And that, I realized, was a beautiful thing. The drive home felt lighter. My apartment, though emptier, felt bigger, brighter, ready for new stories, new adventures. It's funny, isn't it? How something that felt like a loss, like saying goodbye, could also feel like a beginning. I still miss some of those books, of course. The ones that held the deepest memories, the ones that shaped me. But the feeling of letting go, of sharing those stories with the world, well, that's a feeling that stays with me. It's a reminder that even in the midst of change, even in the face of loss, there's always room for something new. Something beautiful. Something book-shaped. So, yeah, that's the story of the day I donated my old books. It was a day of goodbyes, yes, but also a day of hello. A day of letting go and making space for, well, for whatever comes next. And you know what? I'm kind of excited to see what that is. So, you know how it is, right? You look around your place and think, okay, something has to be organized. For me, this weekend, it was my bookshelf. It wasn't just messy, it was a literary avalanche waiting to happen. Books stacked sideways, books piled on top of each other, spines cracked, pages dog-eared. It was a chaotic testament to my love of reading. And dust? Oh, don't even get me started on the dust. So, Saturday morning, I brewed myself a giant mug of tea, Earl Grey, my absolute favorite, and put on some upbeat music. I figured I needed all the motivational help I could get. I mean, let's be honest, cleaning a bookshelf is not exactly a party, is it? But I was determined. This wasn't just about tidying, it was about reclaiming a little piece of my sanity. The first hurdle? Actually starting. I stood there, staring at this towering mountain of literature, feeling a little overwhelmed. Where do you even begin with something like this? You know that feeling, right? It's like facing Mount Everest in sweatpants. I took a deep breath, a sip of tea, and just dove in. The first book I pulled out was Little Women. Oh, the memories. I remember reading this tucked away in my grandma's attic, sunlight streaming through the dusty window panes. I must have been 10, maybe 11? The spine was cracked, the pages yellowed, and there was a faint scent of, well, old attic. It wasn't just a book, it was a time capsule. I ran my fingers over the cover, feeling the slightly raised lettering, and just got lost. And that, my friend, is how the next hour went. Every book I picked up sparked a memory, a feeling, a story. There was my worn-out copy of The Hobbit, with its fantastical map of Middle-earth still tucked inside. I remember staying up all night reading this one, completely engrossed in Bilbo's adventures. Then there was Pride and Prejudice, which I read for a college literature class, underlined passages and scribbled notes in the margins. I even found a dried, pressed flower, a forget-me-not, tucked between the pages. I have absolutely no idea how it got there. It was like uncovering little treasures from my past. The dust, though? Oh my goodness. It was epic. I'm pretty sure I unearthed civilizations in there. I sneezed so much my head started to spin. I had to abandon my post for a while and hunt down a dust mask. You should have seen me. Bright pink dust mask, surrounded by piles of books, looking like a literary surgeon about to perform open-heart surgery on a paperback. It was a sight. And then there were the surprises. I found books I'd completely forgotten I owned. Like, where did this come from? Kind of surprises. I unearthed a book on origami, a guide to identifying constellations, and a vintage cookbook with handwritten recipes tucked inside. It was like a literary scavenger hunt, and I was winning. Of course, there were also the inevitable, oh no, moments. Like the time I pulled out a stack of books a little too enthusiastically and sent the whole lot tumbling to the floor. It sounded like a small library collapsing. My cat, who had been observing the whole process with detached amusement, suddenly bolted from the room, thoroughly convinced the apocalypse had arrived. And then there were the decisions. What to keep, what to donate, what to, gasp, throw away. This was the hardest part. Each book, even the dusty, forgotten ones, held a piece of me. It felt like I was saying goodbye to little parts of my life. I ended up making 3 piles. The keepers, the donators, and the I really can't justify keeping this anymore but I'm still not sure pile. Let's be honest, that last pile is probably going to end up back on the shelf. As I started to put the books back, I decided to try something different. I organized them by color. I know, it's a little extra. But it looked so pretty. My bookshelf transformed from a chaotic mess into a vibrant rainbow of literary goodness. It was oddly satisfying. And yes, I did take a picture. Don't judge me. By the time I finished, it was late afternoon. The room smelled faintly of dust and old paper, my back ached, and my hands were covered in grime. But it was worth it. My bookshelf was no longer a source of stress but a beautiful, organized display of my literary journey. It was a reminder of all the stories I'd read, the places I'd been transported to, and the person I'd become along the way. It wasn't just about cleaning a bookshelf, it was about reconnecting with myself. It was about rediscovering forgotten passions, reliving cherished memories, and appreciating the power of stories. And, you know what? I found a $10 bill tucked inside an old poetry book. Score. So, yeah, cleaning my bookshelf wasn't exactly glamorous, but it was an adventure. It was a messy, dusty, surprisingly emotional journey down memory lane. And, honestly, I'd do it again in a heartbeat. Maybe not tomorrow, though. My back needs a break. But soon. Definitely soon. Now, how about that cup of tea? Hey everyone. It's so inspiring to see you all actively practicing your English speaking skills. You know, there's a powerful thought I keep coming back to. Those who have the passion to learn, have the power to change the world. Think about it. Learning a new language opens up a whole new world of connections and opportunities. It empowers you to communicate with people from different backgrounds, understand their cultures, and share your own experiences. This journey you're on is truly transformative. Now, I have a fun little tip that can make a real difference in your speaking practice. How about recording yourself speaking English? It might feel a little awkward at first, but trust me, it's incredibly helpful. Imagine yourself cooking dinner and just chatting away in English about your day, or describing what you're making. You can even do it during your walk, talking about the things you see around you. Then, listen back and notice how you sound. It's a simple, easy way to become more aware of your pronunciation and fluency, and you can do it anytime, anywhere. And you know what? I can totally relate to the feeling of understanding what others are saying in English, but then hesitating when it's your turn to speak. Something as simple as ordering food confidently can sometimes feel like a challenge, right? You might worry about mispronouncing something or not being understood. I've been there too, and it's perfectly normal. But every time you push yourself to speak, even in small ways, you build your confidence and get closer to fluency. You will not believe what happened the other day. I was trying to order my favorite coffee, and completely blanked on the word caramel. It was so funny, and it got me thinking. Which word in English do you find the hardest? It could be pronunciation, the meaning, or just remembering it at the right moment. Share your thoughts in the comments. I'm really curious to hear your experiences. So, you want to hear a story? Alright, grab a cuppa, get comfy, 'cause this one's a bit of a meander. It's about the day I bought a new watch. Sounds mundane, right? Trust me, it wasn't. See, I'm not a watch person. Never really was. I checked the time on my phone, on the microwave, on the bottom corner of my laptop screen during Zoom meetings. Anywhere but my wrist. I owned one watch, a cheap digital thing from college, mainly used for timing pasta. So why a watch now? Well, that's where the story begins. My grandmother, Nana Rose, she was elegance personified. Everything about her was graceful, from the way she held a teacup to the way she laughed, this little tinkling sound like wind chimes. And she always wore a watch. Not some flashy, diamond-encrusted thing, oh no. Hers was simple, gold, with a delicate leather strap. It was more than a timepiece, it was an extension of her, a quiet statement of her timeless style. Nana Rose passed away a few months ago, and, well, you know how grief is. It comes in waves. Sometimes it's a tsunami, sometimes a gentle ripple. I was sorting through some of her things when I found it, tucked away in a velvet-lined box, her watch. It wasn't valuable in monetary terms, but to me, it was priceless. Holding it in my hand, I felt this connection to her. The smooth coolness of the metal against my skin, the faint scent of her perfume, like roses and sandalwood, still clinging to the strap. It was like holding a piece of her memory, a tangible link to the past. And suddenly, I needed a watch. Not just any watch, but a watch that made me feel even a fraction of the grace and elegance she embodied. Now, I'm not talking about dropping a fortune. I'm a librarian, for goodness sake. We don't exactly roll in dough. But I wanted something special. Something with a story. So, I did what any sensible person in the 21st century would do. I fell down an internet rabbit hole. Hours I spent, clicking through websites, scrolling through endless pictures of watches. Round faces, square faces, leather straps, metal bracelets. I was overwhelmed. You know how it is when you're looking for something specific, and the sheer volume of choices just paralyzes you. Yeah, that was me. Finally, I stumbled upon a small, independent watchmaker's website. Their designs were different. Unique. They used reclaimed materials, vintage movements, things like that. And there it was. The watch. It had a small, silver face, delicate Roman numerals, and a worn leather strap the color of aged parchment. It wasn't flashy, it wasn't trying too hard. It was perfect. The next day, which was a crisp, sunny Saturday, I decided to visit the shop in person. It was tucked away on a quiet side street, a tiny storefront with a window display filled with intriguing clockwork contraptions. The bell above the door jingled as I entered, and the air inside smelled of, well, it's hard to describe. Like old books and polished wood and maybe a hint of lemon oil. The watchmaker, a man with kind eyes and hands that looked like they could fix anything, greeted me with a warm smile. We talked about watches, of course, but also about Nana Rose, about the importance of objects that hold memories, about the slow, deliberate craft of making something beautiful and lasting. He showed me the watch I'd seen online, and it was even more stunning in person. The leather strap was softer than I'd imagined, the silver face gleamed subtly in the light. He explained the history of the movement, how it had been salvaged from an antique clock, carefully restored and given a new life. It felt right, like this watch was meant to be mine. But there was a problem. It was slightly outside my budget. Just slightly. I hemmed and hawed, doing that awkward internal calculation of how many takeout coffees I could forego to justify the expense. The watchmaker, bless his heart, must have sensed my hesitation. "Tell you what," he said, his eyes twinkling. "I have a slightly damaged box for this one. Just a little scuff on the corner. If you don't mind, I can give you a discount." A scuffed box? Who cared about the box? I practically snatched the watch from his hands. He carefully adjusted the strap to fit my wrist, and as he fastened the clasp, I felt this shiver of excitement. It wasn't just a watch, it was a connection to Nana Rose, a reminder of her elegance, her grace, her timeless style. Walking out of the shop, the sunlight glinting off the watch face, I felt lighter. Happier, like I was carrying a little piece of Nana Rose with me. I kept glancing down at my wrist, admiring the way the light played on the silver, the way the worn leather felt against my skin. And you know what? The funniest thing happened. Later that day, I was at the grocery store, and this woman, probably in her 80s, stopped me. She pointed to my watch and said, "That's a beautiful timepiece. It reminds me of one my grandmother used to wear." I smiled, a real, genuine smile that reached all the way to my eyes. And in that moment, I knew. It wasn't just a watch. It was a story. A story about memory, about connection, about finding beauty in unexpected places. And it was a story I was now a part of. So, yeah, that's the story of the day I bought a new watch. See? I told you it was more than just a mundane purchase. It was a little piece of magic, tucked away on my wrist. Okay, so, you are never going to believe what happened to me at the county fair last weekend. Seriously. Buckle up, Buttercup, because this is a wild ride. It all started innocently enough. You know how it is, that perfect summer day practically begging you to get out of the house? Sun shining, a light breeze. I could almost smell the cotton candy and hear the distant rumble of rides from my porch swing. It was irresistible. I grabbed my favorite sun hat, the floppy one with the sunflowers, remember? And practically skipped down to the fairgrounds. Now, I have this weakness. Okay, obsession. With those giant prize-winning stuffed animals. You've seen them, right? The ones that are bigger than toddlers? I've always wanted one. Every year, I go, every year I try, and every year I come home with a pathetic little rubber ducky or something. It's almost a tradition at this point. But this year, I was determined. This was the year. I paid my entry fee, that satisfying rip of the ticket still echoing in my mind, and took a deep breath. The air was a chaotic mix of popcorn, sawdust, and something vaguely farmyardy. It's the official scent of summer, isn't it? I grinned, that pure, unadulterated fairground grin, you know the one? First stop, food. Because, priorities. I got myself a corn dog, dripping with butter, naturally, and a lemonade so tart it made my lips pucker. I even splurged on a bag of those ridiculously overpriced cinnamon sugar donut holes. Because, hey, it's the fair. Don't judge. Okay, now for the main event, Operation Giant Plushie. I scoped out the games, analyzing them with the steely gaze of a seasoned general preparing for battle. The ring toss? Too unpredictable. The basketball free throw? My aim is questionable, let's just say. Then I saw it. The water gun race. You know, the one where you squirt water into a target to make your little horse climb to the top? It looked doable. First try? Epic fail. My horse barely moved. The kid next to me, all of 7 years old, won a giant pink unicorn on his first go. The universe was clearly mocking me. Second try? Slightly less pathetic. The horse twitched. Progress. Third try? I'm not gonna lie, I started talking to the little plastic horse. Encouraging it, pleading with it, even threatening it at one point. Don't judge me. I really wanted that plush llama. By my 10th attempt, the carny running the game was looking at me with a mixture of pity and amusement. You want some tips, sweetheart? He asked, a twinkle in his eye. I considered my options. Pride? Or a giant fluffy llama? The llama won. He gave me some insider advice, apparently, aiming for the bottom of the target works better. Who knew? And, miracle of miracles, on my next try, my little plastic horse surged to the top. I shrieked with delight, startling a nearby family and scattering a flock of pigeons. Victory. I chose the llama, a majestic beast with ridiculously long eyelashes, and clutched it to my chest like it was my firstborn. Now, weighed down by my prize, I decided to check out the animal barns. Big mistake. Remember those farmyardy smells I mentioned? Well, they were amplified. Let's just say the prize-winning pig wasn't exactly winning any fragrance awards. I held my breath, gave the fluffy sheep a quick pat, much better smelling than the pig, I might add, and made a hasty retreat. The rest of the day was a blur of dizzying rides, questionable fried foods, and people watching. I saw a guy walking around with a live snake draped around his neck. Why? A woman juggling flaming torches. How? And a toddler wearing a t-shirt that said, "I'm with stupid," while pointing at his dad. Classic. And then, as if the day couldn't get any weirder, guess what happened? I bumped into my high school crush. The high school crush. The one with the dazzling smile and questionable taste in music. He was different. Balder. A little thicker around the middle. Carrying a giant stuffed panda bear. Apparently, I wasn't the only one with a plushy obsession. We chatted awkwardly for a bit, reminisced about terrible school dances and even worse fashion choices. It was surprisingly nice. Who knew a giant panda bear could be such a conversation starter? As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the fairground, I found myself sitting on a bench, my llama beside me, watching the Ferris wheel spin against the twilight sky. My feet ached, my stomach was full of questionable food, and my arms were tired from carrying my prize, but I felt content. It was a perfect, imperfect, wonderfully weird day. And you know what the best part was? Getting home, collapsing on the couch, and cuddling with my giant fluffy llama. Worth every penny, every water gun squirt, and every awkward encounter. So, yeah, that was my day at the fair. Pretty epic, huh? You should have been there. We could have teamed up on the water gun race. Imagine the plushy haul. Next year, right? We'll conquer those games together. And maybe even brave the pig barn. Maybe. Hey everyone. Learning a new language can feel like climbing a mountain, but remember, the view from the top is incredible. And you know what? Mistakes are the best teachers, never be afraid of them. Think of them as stepping stones, each one bringing you closer to fluency. They're not setbacks, but opportunities to learn and grow. Embrace them, learn from them, and watch your confidence soar. Here's a fun little trick I use. I practice speaking English while cooking. It's so easy to do. Imagine you're explaining your recipe to someone, describing each step as you chop those veggies or stir that sauce. You will not believe what happened next. I actually started enjoying cooking even more. It's like a mini immersion experience right in your own kitchen. And honestly, it felt like magic when I found myself thinking in English without even realizing it. Speaking up in meetings, though. I totally get it. Do you also find yourself understanding what others say in English, but hesitate when it's your turn to speak? It's a common feeling. That little voice of doubt can be so loud sometimes. But remember, every single person learning a new language faces this. The key is to take a deep breath and jump in. You've got this. The other day, I was listening to someone share their language learning journey and it really got me thinking. It made me realize how many different ways there are to practice and improve. How do you practice English speaking daily? I'd love to hear your tips and tricks. Let's share our experiences and inspire each other. Okay, so, picture this. It's Saturday. Gloriously, beautifully Saturday. The kind of Saturday where the sun is streaming in, birds are chirping. Okay, maybe not chirping, but at least not actively plotting my demise like they do on Mondays, and I've got absolutely nothing planned. Bliss. Except, my stomach's rumbling. Like, really rumbling. You know that feeling? Like a tiny, disgruntled gremlin is setting up a bowling alley in your intestines? So, I'm rummaging through the fridge, looking for inspiration. Leftover chicken tikka masala? Nah, had that yesterday. Alone, slightly suspect-looking pickle? Hard pass. And then, I see it. A bag of mozzarella, gleaming white and promising cheesy goodness. A light bulb goes off. Pizza. Homemade pizza. I haven't attempted that culinary feat in, well, let's just say it's been a while. But today I felt brave. Today, I was going to conquer the dough. Now, I'm not a baker. At all. My baking skills basically peak at toast. But pizza dough? It can't be that hard, right? Famous last words, I know. I pull up a recipe on my phone, one with, like, a million 5-star reviews and comments like, easiest ever, and, my grandma makes this better. Okay, grandma, no need to rub it in. The recipe called for yeast. Yeast, that mysterious, living, stuff. I stared at the little packet with a mixture of awe and suspicion. It looked like brown sugar but smelled faintly of feet. Don't judge. Maybe my yeast was just having a bad day. Anyway, I mixed it with warm water and sugar, as instructed, and waited for the magic to happen. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. Nothing. Nada. My yeast was clearly staging a protest. I poked it with a spoon. Still nothing. I started to doubt my entire existence. Was I even capable of activating yeast? What kind of adult can't activate yeast? Just when I was about to declare the whole thing a disaster and resort to ordering takeout, again, I noticed a tiny bubble. Then another. And another. My yeast was alive. It was frothy. I did a little happy dance, right there in my kitchen, probably scaring the cat half to death. Okay, so, yeast activated. Next step. Flour. I hauled out my biggest bowl, the one usually reserved for popcorn marathons, and dumped in the flour. A cloud of white dust erupted, coating the entire kitchen, including me. I looked like a reject from a baking competition. Or maybe a very enthusiastic ghost. Then came the oil, the salt, wait. Did I already add the salt? I frantically scrolled through the recipe. Nope. Crisis averted. I poured in the oil, a little too enthusiastically, and it splashed all over the counter. My kitchen was starting to resemble a flour and oil war zone. Now, the moment of truth. Combining the yeast mixture with the flour. The recipe said to knead the dough. Knead? What even is kneading? I vaguely remembered seeing my grandma do it once, years ago, her hands working the dough with a rhythmic, almost hypnotic motion. I tried to replicate it. It wasn't pretty. My dough was sticky, unruly, clinging to my hands like a desperate koala. I punched it, I prodded it, I wrestled with it. It was a full-on dough versus me showdown. After what felt like an eternity, and probably looked like a scene from a slapstick comedy, I finally had something resembling a ball of dough. It wasn't smooth and perfectly round like in the pictures, but it was a ball. I covered it with a tea towel, because that's what all the cool bakers do, right? And placed it in a warm spot to rise. And then, I waited. And waited. And checked my phone approximately every 5 minutes. Was it rising? Was it not rising? Was it just mocking me? After an hour, it had puffed up a bit. Not dramatically, but enough to give me hope. Progress. While the dough was doing its thing, or pretending to, I moved on to the sauce. Now, I could have just used a jar of pre-made sauce, like a normal person. But no, I decided to be fancy. I chopped onions, garlic, and tomatoes, my fingers getting increasingly sticky and tomato-y. I sautéed them in a pan, adding herbs and spices, until the kitchen was filled with the rich aroma of simmering tomato goodness. Okay, maybe it was slightly burnt tomato goodness. But still, it smelled promising. Finally, the moment I'd been waiting for, assembling the pizza. I rolled out the dough, which, thankfully, had cooperated and actually risen, spread on the sauce, ignoring the slightly burnt bits, and sprinkled on a generous layer of mozzarella. Then came the toppings: pepperoni, mushrooms, olives, and because I'm a culinary rebel, pineapple. Don't at me. The pizza went into the oven, and I stood there, mesmerized, watching the cheese bubble and brown. The smell wafting from the oven was intoxicating. This was it. This was the culmination of my hours of labor, and flour-related chaos. And then, disaster struck. The smoke alarm went off. Apparently, a little bit of tomato sauce had dripped onto the bottom of the oven and decided to stage a dramatic protest of its own. I fanned the smoke detector frantically with a tea towel, the same one that had covered the dough, mind you, while simultaneously trying to rescue my pizza from the fiery depths of the oven. Finally, the alarm subsided, and I retrieved my pizza. It wasn't perfect. It was slightly burnt on one side, the crust was a little uneven, and the toppings were distributed creatively. But you know what? It was mine. I had made it. From scratch. With yeast. And it was delicious. I devoured that pizza like I hadn't eaten in days. Every slightly burnt, unevenly topped bite was a testament to my perseverance, my creativity, and my willingness to embrace the chaos. And you know what? I learned a few things. I learned that yeast is not my enemy, most of the time. I learned that kneading dough is a workout. And I learned that even imperfect, slightly burnt pizza is better than no pizza at all. So, yeah, that's the story of how I made homemade pizza. It was messy, it was chaotic, it was definitely an adventure. But hey, isn't that what life's all about? Right? Right. Now, who wants another slice? Just kidding, I ate it all. Don't judge. Settling into a comfortable chair, a warm smile touches my lips. So, you want to hear about the day I learned to play the accordion? Oh, honey, it's a story. A real story. Grab a cuppa, this might take a while. It all started, well, it started sadly, if I'm being honest. My Nana Rose, she was everything. Like a warm hug on a cold day, you know? The smell of cinnamon and sugar always clung to her apron, and her laugh? It could chase away any storm cloud. Anyway, she passed. And it hollowed out a piece of me. Nana Rose played the accordion. Not professionally or anything, but at family gatherings, holidays, any excuse really. It was a bright, cherry-red Italian accordion, all shiny buttons and bellows. It sat in the corner of her living room, like a silent, gleaming promise of joy. I never paid much attention to it. When she was alive. I mean, kids, right? Too busy with other things. But after she was gone, it became this symbol. Of her. Of everything I'd lost. My mom inherited Nana's house and all its contents, including the accordion. It ended up in our attic, gathering dust, a forgotten melody. Months passed. I moped around, listening to sad music, drawing angsty pictures, the whole teenage grief routine. One rainy afternoon, rummaging through old boxes in the attic, I stumbled upon it. The cherry red gleamed even in the dim light filtering through the dusty attic window. I traced the cool metal of the buttons, the worn leather of the straps. And suddenly, I felt this urge. This overwhelming, almost desperate need to play it. To connect with her, to hear her laughter echoing in the bellows again. Now, I'd never played an instrument in my life. Piano lessons in 3rd grade ended in a spectacular recital meltdown involving a forgotten piece and a runaway cat. So, the accordion? It was intimidating, to say the least. It looked like a spaceship control panel crossed with a medieval torture device. I hauled it downstairs, this heavy, awkward thing, and plunked it on the kitchen table. My mom raised an eyebrow, a mixture of surprise and, I think, a little sadness in her eyes. "Your Nana would have loved that," she whispered, her voice catching. And that, right there, that's when I knew I had to do this. So, I started. Oh, it was a disaster. You know those YouTube videos of cats playing the piano? Yeah, it was worse. My fingers fumbled, the bellows wheezed like a dying walrus, and the sounds that came out. Let's just say they wouldn't have charmed a snake. The straps dug into my shoulders, the weight of the instrument felt like a lead vest, and the buttons, oh, the buttons. There were so many, rows and rows of them, each promising a different note, a different world of sound, but all I managed to produce was a cacophony of squawks and groans. I wanted to give up. Throw the thing across the room, bury it back in the attic, pretend it never happened. But then, I remembered Nana Rose. Her gentle hands flying over the keys, her foot tapping to the rhythm, the sheer joy radiating from her as she played. And I kept going. Days turned into weeks. I practiced every day, my fingers aching, my ears ringing. I found an old instruction book tucked inside the accordion case, its pages yellowed and brittle. The diagrams looked like alien hieroglyphics, the musical notation a foreign language. I watched grainy YouTube videos of polka bands, trying to decipher their finger movements, mimicking their bellows control. It was slow, painstaking, frustrating, but little by little, I started to get it. Remember those first few wobbly steps you take as a baby? That feeling of triumph, of conquering the impossible? That's what it felt like when I finally managed to play a simple C major scale. It wasn't pretty, mind you. It sounded more like a drunken elephant tap dancing, but it was mine. I had created music. From this beast of an instrument. The first song I learned was La Vie en Rose. Nana Rose's favorite. It was a slow, melancholic melody, and the first time I managed to play it all the way through without messing up, well, let's just say there were tears. Not just sad tears, but happy tears too. It was like a little piece of her was there with me, in the music, in the air. It wasn't easy. There were days when I wanted to scream, days when my fingers refused to cooperate, days when the accordion felt like my enemy. But I kept practicing. I learned other songs, experimented with different rhythms, discovered the magic hidden within those rows of buttons. The accordion, once a symbol of loss, became a source of comfort, a connection to my Nana, a way to express the emotions I couldn't put into words. You know, it's funny. I started playing the accordion to hold onto the past, to keep Nana Rose's memory alive. But in doing so, I discovered something new about myself. A passion, a talent, a way to, I don't know, to make sense of the world, I guess. So, yeah, the day I learned to play the accordion, it wasn't just about learning an instrument. It was about healing, about connection, about finding beauty in unexpected places. And you know what? It all started with a dusty, cherry-red accordion in a dimly lit attic. Who would have thought? Life, huh? It throws you curveballs. But sometimes, those curveballs lead you to the most beautiful melodies. A wistful smile plays on my lips, and I reach for my cup of tea, lost in thought. Well, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for watching and for staying connected with me throughout this video. It really means a lot. I'd love for you to follow, like, subscribe and share this video so you can keep up with the new content I put out daily, focused on helping you with your English speaking and listening skills. Before we go, it made me wonder, do you have anything exciting coming up this weekend? It is always so lovely to hear what everyone is thinking about and planning, and sharing your thoughts in the comments is a fantastic way to practice expressing yourself in English and connect with others. I was just thinking about all the fun possibilities. See you tomorrow, and in the meantime, take good care of yourselves and keep practicing. You're doing great.